I think you're going to have a country that's going to boom. I just spoke to Tim Cook of Apple. He's investing $500 billion in the United States, which he would have never. He told me, I would never have done it if you lost the election, and I would have never done it if there wasn't a tariff system. If you have your company here, if you build your product, make your car, or whatever it is you're making, no tariffs.
That's President Trump touting recent investments in the U.S. as the planned reciprocal tariffs on other countries loomed this week. Let's bring in our economic panel on tariffs, National Taxpayers Union Executive Vice President Brandon Arnold and Unleash Prosperity Executive Director and former Bush administration official Tim Dasher. Tim, Brandon, thanks for being here. We don't know what's coming on Liberation Day. I'm not even entirely sure everyone in the White House is aware of what President Trump plans to do. He believes this is going to be very powerful and that it's going to reset a level playing field in reciprocity. Tim, let's start with you. How do you see it? Do you agree with President Trump?
Well, look, I think that reciprocity is the goal in anything. If reciprocal, low and no tariffs is really, I think, in my opinion, as a free trader, that's true free trade. I understand what President Trump is saying, that we haven't really had free trade ever. We've had countries that give us higher tariffs, we give them lower tariffs. So I understand the reciprocity argument. However, I think the messaging has sort of shifted away from that to tit for tat. And that's harder for the American people to understand, because when you go tit for tat, tariff for tariff, that's about 2.3 million different little tariffs that you're negotiating.
That's a lot.
That's not less complex government. That's more complex government.
More complicated. Brandon, so earlier today, Peter Navarro, White House economic advisor, had this to say about the tariffs. Listen.
The message is that tariffs are tax cuts. Tariffs are jobs. Tariffs are national security. Tariffs are great for America. Tariffs will make America great again.
Tariffs are great. Do you agree?
Absolutely not. Fundamentally, tariffs are not tax cuts. They are tax increases. We are applying more in the way of taxes to products that we bring into this country. When you apply more taxes to something, guess what happens to the price? It goes up. So at a time when Americans are desperately asking for lower prices to drop that cost of living, the very reason why they put Donald Trump into the White House again, these tariffs run counter to that objective. And that's what's really concerning, not just for the economy, but also for President Trump's political capital.
So it's interesting. We have a Fox poll, a recent Fox poll, we can put this up, that literally shows 69% of Americans think tariffs on imports will increase prices on products. That's really exactly what you're talking about, Brandon. But yet you are seeing, when we talk about Americans worried about paying more for cars and the impact it could have on American cars, you had the head of the most powerful auto union, the UAW, Shawn Fain, that had this to say this morning.
We have a situation right now in Warren, Michigan, where 2,000 workers were laid off this past year. They built the Ram truck there for years under Stellantis. And Stellantis made a decision to shift that production to Mexico. They could shift that work back in very short order and be producing Ram trucks right back there and put those people back to work.
And Tim, the reason, a little insight into what Shawn Fain's talking about is because when they sent those jobs to Mexico, they basically just took 4 assembly lines down to 1. So the plant itself physically still exists. If you bring those jobs back, in some cases, like Stellantis, they can be really in a matter of weeks, be back up to full American manufacturing. And that is what he says is beneficial.
Look, as a son of Detroit, born and raised and educated, I know that there's a lot of capacity in Detroit to, retool and start factories up again. But let me just say this. There's a whole lot more going on behind the scenes than tariffs, Griff. Think about the renewable energy mandates in the state of Michigan that are required. That was put in by Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I mean, that makes automakers say, okay, if that's going to make production $500 million more a year, we're going to find a better deal somewhere else. And so that went with Mexico because that's the current agreement that they have. So I would say that you got to look at a holistic view on this thing. You can't just say the tariffs are going to be the fix, because there's a lot going on in the state of Michigan other than that. So I have to take a little bit of a difference in that.
Yeah, no, it's great insight coming from someone from Michigan. And Brandon, the president himself and many others in the administration have been pretty open about, listen, some discomfort in the short term is coming, but the long run goal is more important and is achievable. Do you agree with that? I mean, could we be looking at actually so much discomfort that the administration is misreading how bad that could be?
I think they are misreading things a little bit here because people, like you put on that poll, people are so frustrated with prices right now. And it's not just Trump voters, it's independents, it's Democrats, it's everybody is frustrated with high prices. And they need to make that the laser focus of this administration. They did a pretty good job with that in 2017 when they had a tax bill that was really pro-growth, that stimulated the economy, that created jobs. They had a deregulatory agenda that was partnered with that. The economy was roaring, and that needs to be the focus of this administration. Again, do what worked in the first administration. Get back to helping to create jobs, grow the economy by creating a good business platform.
I'm up against the clock, but I'll give you the last word.
I just want to say the tariff thing is we need to pay attention to, but we cannot lose sight. We cannot let the media let us lose sight of DOGE, what they're doing, saving $1 trillion potentially. We can't lose sight of closing the Department of Education. We can't lose sight of a potential 15% corporate tax rate, the regulatory reform, 10-to-1 reduction in regulation. We cannot lose sight of that. The markets shouldn't lose sight of the potential that we have to make this economy roaring in spite of the tariffs.
There was a time when there was unified sentiments towards cutting waste, but here we are, and it's a whole new day with DOGE. Brandon, Tim, thanks. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.